Hello Trailblazers and welcome back to our channel Trailhead Ranger NJ, and where we break down everything about Salesforce. Today we are diving into one of the most essential tools for the Salesforce development and testing, that is the Salesforce Sandbox. Whether you are a developer building custom apps, an admin who is configuring automation, or a consultant who is testing new integration, Sandboxes will be your safe space to experiment and innovate. It won't be affecting your live data in production, so you can do anything and anywhere and however you want. Today in this video, we are going to cover what is Salesforce Sandbox, what are the different types of sandboxes, why shall we use Salesforce Sandbox, and how can we create Salesforce Sandbox. So let's move on to the next. Let's talk about Salesforce Sandbox. So it is nothing but it refers to a creation of separate testing environment which is completely isolated from production environment. Production environment. And also it is referred to as our safe space for testing and innovation. Why do we say it as safe space? Because we can modify our data and code or anything and it won't affect our production data. And in Salesforce, sandbox environments play a very critical role in delivering reliable and innovative solution. And why do we say that it helps in delivering reliable and innovative solutions? Again, because in sandboxes we can test our innovation, our code, and anything. Even we can test out our data as well, if it is correct or how is affecting our functionality, so that it will not create a error when our end customer or end user will be using this particular functionality. So again, as we said, that whether you are developing, testing, or training, Sandbox offer a secure and isolated environment which mirrors our production system without risking any real-time operations. Okay, let's move on to the next unit. So now we will be talking about why use Sandbox. So Sandbox provide us safety test new features and customizations, because again, as we said, or as we are saying again and again, that we can test new features and customization, new code, new functionalities, different type of data set for positive and negative scenarios. So, and it can ensure error free deployments as well. Again, error free deployments, because we can just test out every functionality in our lower sandboxes, so that in our higher environment it will be providing error free deployments. We can conduct through user acceptance testing as well, which is just the final end product, or say end code, which allows to provide error free deployments, and then training teams with real world scenarios as well. So now we'll be talking about what are the different types of sandboxes. So first is developer sandbox. Developer sandbox, if we talk about, we'll be digging more deep into these sandboxes. What are their size, what is the use, what kind of content they hold. But if we talk about very briefly, so developer sandbox is nothing but to hold the individual development and testing. So if a user, like we have our separate or sample dev org, which we create for our hands-on practice. So similarly, developer sandbox can be used for individual development and testing. Then we have Developer Pro Sandbox. It has comparatively larger storage in compared to Developer Sandbox for more complex development tasks. Then we have Partial Copy Sandbox, which includes sample data, which is perfect for testing and validation. Then we have Full Sandbox, which holds the replica of production data, and it helps for full scale testing and staging. So now let's talk about these sandboxes in more detail. First is developer sandbox. So developer sandbox size is very small. It holds 200 MB of data storage, and it used primarily for individual development and testing. For refresh it takes approx 1 day, and only metadata is copied. There will be no data present. Then like, if you want to know about what does it mean by only metadata and no data, so actual data, that is records or users, that data will not be present, but only the metadata. And we will be talking about some complex term later on in this video only, that is what exactly is metadata. Then for developer pro sandbox, if we talk about, its size is larger, approximately 1 GB of data storage, larger than the developer sandbox, and its use is suitable for larger projects and team development, and its refresh interval is 1 day. And content, it again holds metadata with more storage, that is having the capacity for data, but again doesn't hold the data. Now we will talk about partial copy sandbox. So partial copy sandbox is much larger than the developer and developer pro sandbox. Its size is 5 GB of data storage, which includes a sample of production data, not complete production data, but a sample of it. So you can test if it is working with some of the production data or not. So you can have it just test out briefly. It will be suitable for testing with some data, but not the entire production database, as I said. And then it takes 5 days for refresh interval, and content, it holds metadata and a portion of data, like we said, that a sample of production data. For full sandbox, its size is, it's like a complete clone of production environment, which includes all data and all metadata of production, and it's used for full scale testing, that is, and testing before just go live. You should be testing in this environment only. So QA is staging for deployment. UAT, that is user acceptance testing, which is final testing. Will be briefly talking about this term as well. That is UAT. Refresh interval is 29 days, and content, it holds full copy of metadata and data. Now we talk about, if we want to create sandbox in Salesforce, how can we create that? So first of all, you have to log into your Salesforce, and then you can click the gear icon on the top right uh, to go to the setup. In the quick find search menu, you can search for sandbox and then select the sandboxes. It will navigate you to the page listing your organization sandboxes. So whatever sandbox would be linked to your organization, it will be listed there. Then you can select any of the sandbox you want to clone. You can select any sandbox to clone, and then it will give you the option that which type of uh, sandbox you want to select, and it will also give you the option to clone, delete, refresh, or login into any of these sandboxes. But if you want to just create a new sandbox, you can clone any of this sandbox, then give the sandbox name and select sandbox license out of the four types which we just discussed. That is out of developer, developer pro sandbox, partial, and full sandbox. And at last, we will talk about some important terms such as metadata. So metadata is nothing but it is a label, a system of labels which provides context and information about data. So if you remember LWC holds metadata file. Similarly, our project of in VS Studio holds package.xml. It's also is kind of metadata. So metadata is doesn't hold complete data, but it holds the context of data, that is what kind of data we are having. If we talk about user acceptance testing, that is UAT, so it is nothing but the process where end users or stakeholders test the system to ensure that it meets their business requirements and functions as expected before it goes live. So it is one of the final stages for testing process and typically performed after development and QA testing are completed. So that's all for this video. I hope you learned something about Salesforce Sandbox. And if you do, please like the video and subscribe the channel. And if you have any doubt, any opinion, any suggestion, please let me know in the comment section as well. Thank you. Stay tuned.